Mark, another Mad Movie Mark movie review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1949 British comedy Kind Hearts and Coronets.
I'd say that your nose was just a little too short. Your mouth just a little too wide.
Hey, that's not very nice. Let's all try to be friendly with each other here. I am reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm giving them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, and now I'm at 1949 with Kind Hearts and Coronets. This movie has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 94% fresh rating from the audience, which is a pretty good score. It stars Dennis Price as Luis Descoing Mazzini, Alec Guinness as the entire Duke family, so he plays, I believe, 8 roles, including a female in this movie, Valerie Hobson as Edith, and Joan Greenwood as Sabella. When we first start out in this movie, we're introduced to Dennis Price. So he is currently in jail, in prison, waiting to be executed. He has been charged with the crime of murder, and when we first see him, we see the executioner who's kind of talking with the jailer about how this should proceed, how he's never really been able to execute a duke before, and how this is a great honor for him, considering the last duke that they executed, it went very sloppily and it was very, very poorly handled. So he wants to make sure that he has the right gestures down, that he's greeting the duke in the proper way, and that everything goes according to plan.
Well, Colonel, considering the importance of the occasion, I shall retire early. The last execution of a duke in this country was very badly bungled. That was in the old days of the axe, of course.
After we see him exit, we are then told about the life of Luis Descoing Mazzini and how he ended up in the situation. So his mother was a prominent member of the Descoing family until she married an Italian opera singer who the family thought was kind of below their standards, kind of under what they thought that they should marry into. So they treated her as the black sheep of the family. They basically kicked her out of the family tree, and she was left to grow up poor, or to continue her life with her husband poor. So that means, of course, Luis was also growing up poor, but they were happy until Luis's father passed away, and then she was sought with bringing up her child on her own. She then lets Luis know that there is a special clause in their family where people can descend from female heirs. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the male heir. So he is in fact in line to be Duke, but at the moment he is 12 or something people ahead of him.
It's very stupid of him, of them all, not to admit your existence when one day you might be Duke of Chalfont.
It's a very big night, Mamma. There must be at least 12 people before me.
So it doesn't really look very good for him, like he's going to be able to rise through the ranks. So since he is poor, he is doing odd jobs, and he has to, do whatever he can to support his family. When he gets a little bit older, his mom tries to send a letter to the dukes and ask them if they can take him kind of under his wing and train him to be a banker and, help him grow up to have a good profession. But they kind of stomped that out right away. They don't know who he is. They claim they don't know who he is. They don't know who she is, and that they're not just going to let anyone into their family in that particular way. So they kind of brush him off, and he ends up having to continue to work these odd jobs. He is working in a dress shop when he hears that his mother has had a terrible accident and she's on her deathbed. He goes to her deathbed and she says, my last wish is to be married in the Descoing family plot where the rest of my family is. Please send them a letter and let them know I want to be buried there.
Yes, Mama.
I should like to be buried at Chalfont, in the family vault.
Yes, Mama.
So he sends them a letter and lets them know that, and they come back with this really terrible reply. We never really learn what the reply is, but according to Luis, it's just the worst reply that you could have come up with. So he decides that he's going to enact revenge on his family, and he is going to, get restitution for his mom, who was not allowed to, her last wishes were not met.
Standing by Mamma's poor little grave in that hideous suburban cemetery, I made an oath that I would revenge the wrongs her family had done her.
He doesn't know how he's going to do this, though, But when he's working at the dress shop one day, he'll go up to like the top of the dress shop where he has a family tree book, and he'll look at the newspaper clippings, and he'll try to see like who died, who was born, what are basically his odds of becoming a duke. And that's all he can really do right now. He doesn't have a plan.
Every lunchtime I went to see how my inheritance was proceeding. Sometimes the deaths column brought good news. Sometimes the births column brought bad.
One day while he's working in the shop, though, one of the Descoings come in and they're buying, they're trying to buy something from him. They have a bit of an argument, and the Descoing gentleman gets really upset and has Luis fired from his job. So then now Luis is dead set on this idea of killing off his family so that he can rise to the ranks of in Descoing and become a duke.
And as the Italian proverb says, revenge is a dish which people of taste prefer to eat cold.
So the first person he kills off, this person is in a boat with his girlfriend, and Luis finds a way to kind of set the boat off into this this waterfall where he falls to his death. And he essentially dies. The second Descoing that he decides to kill is a photographer. So he buys a camera, he sets the camera up, he pretends like he is a great photographer, he pretends like he knows what he's doing, and the Descoing comes up to him right away and says, "Oh, I like your camera. Hey, you want to go to my darkroom and we can develop those photos?" So that was really easy.
My method of approach proved an instantaneous success.
Excuse me. Isn't that a Thornton Pickard?
Yes. Are you a photographer?
Dabble in it.
So he says yes, and he ends up meeting this Descoing's wife. The wife is Edith, and he realizes that Edith is actually a really good person compared to everyone else that he's met. She has a really good demeanor. The way she thinks is pretty much in line with the way he thinks. So, you know, he takes a liking to her at first. He ends up killing off the photographer Descoing by replacing some of the chemicals in his developing room with the chemicals that will blow up. And when he goes to develop his film, his whole place blows up and he ends up dying. Then Luis decides that he's going to pursue Edith and that he is going to try to one day ask for her hand in marriage. But we're not going to go to that because as he's at the funeral for this photographer, he sees his next victim, which is a priest. So the priest is basically the black sheep of the Descoing family. He's not too bright. He's not too smart. But, you know, I guess he does a good job at what he does. He ends up having Luis come over for dinner, and they end up talking. And during that dinner service, Luis ends up poisoning him. And now we have the third Descoing that is dead. The fourth Descoing, we don't actually meet her. We actually figure out who she is. We don't get a lot of backstory on her. But she is flying in a hot air balloon, and she's like delivering leaflets. I guess she's part of like the women's suffrage movement, and she's like throwing leaflets off the balloons and off the balloon. And he is in some sort of building on a high level, and he shoots an arrow, and the balloon deflates.
I shot an arrow in the air. She fell to earth in Berkeley Square.
Okay, so now he has 4 Descoings out of the way, and now it's on to number 5. One is a gentleman who is eating at a restaurant. Now this guy is gluttonous, I guess, and he kind of goes to this restaurant all the time, and he always eats at the same place. So Luis is able to kind of switch his food out with actually he like kind of gives him this food with a bomb in it, and when Descoing opens it and goes to eat it, the bomb goes off and he dies. And then the next one is a Navy captain of a vessel. Now Luis is not sure how he's supposed to kill this guy because he's never on land. He's always out to sea. He pretty much never steps foot on land. But as luck would have it, He gave this ship captain gave the wrong order when they were trying to get. There were two ships coming at each other. He gave the wrong order, and he accidentally crashed into the other ship, and he went down with the ship and he died. So that was one that Luis did not have to kill because he ended up, dying on his own. Then we have another one who is an older gentleman, and at this point, Luis is he's kind of really coming in line here to become the next Duke. There's not a whole lot of space left between him, so he meets with this guy, and this guy is older. I mean, he's much older, and he says, a lot of my family member has been dying lately, so I've decided I'm going to take a young wife, and I'm going to try to have a son or a daughter so that we can have another heir to the family, because it's getting kind of shallow here. When Luis hears this, he of course is startled. He's very upset. Like, he can't have this guy having a child, because then that would be just another person in the way. So he decides that he's going to go on a hunting trip with this desk coin. And when he goes on a hunting trip, he ends up trapping. This desk coin sets out different traps, like in the wilderness, to trap people, because there's a lot of homeless people and beggars who go onto their property, and he traps them, and then he whips them and he beats them, and then he sets them free. So Luis tries to use this to his advantage. He takes him to a place where Descoing doesn't necessarily know there's a trap there, and he gets him in the trap. And as Descoing is struggling, Luis kind of tells him the whole plot, tells him what he's doing, how he's murdered all these other Descoings, and how he's going to murder him, and then he shoots him and he dies. Now, after this, there's only one other Descoing who's left, and this is a banker. Earlier in the movie, Luis was able to kind of finagle himself into a job with this banker. So him and this banker, the banker thinks he's friends with him, and the banker has given him a couple promotions throughout the way, and the banker realizes that Luis is part of the family, and he says, I think that since all these people are dying, you're going to be next in line. So he's been treating him like he's going to eventually be next in line. Well, now the banker is the one who is the Duke, except when he hears that the other one was killed in a hunting accident, he dies of a heart attack, which Luis is fine about, because now he doesn't have to kill this guy that he likes, the only one of them that he actually likes or had any feeling towards, because the guy had a heart attack. So now all 8 of these Descoings are dead, either by the hand of Luis or by the hand of fate, and now Luis is Duke. Now, he has one problem. So earlier in the movie, there was this girl named Sabella. Sabella is a childhood friend of Luis, and at one point in the movie, Luis actually says to Sabella, I think we should get married, we should start a life together. Sabella turns him down, and instead she marries another gentleman who has a rich family. Now this other gentleman, he ends up coming to Luis later in the movie, and he says, hey, look, my business is going terribly, we're underwater, I'm running out of money, and could I have a loan? Now Luis ponders this idea, and he says, well, he says in his head, he doesn't say it out loud, but he says, at the rate that this guy is burning through money, if I give him more, he's just going to dig himself in a deeper hole, and, maybe this will lead me to a path with Sabella, or maybe this will lead to Sabella being hurt because her husband is dead, and that'll have him get revenge. Whatever his motives are, he decides to give him the money, and then at this point, at the end of the movie, this guy comes to Luis, and he says, hey, look, I know you did that on purpose. You gave me the money because you know that I would plow through it. And he says, all I can do now is commit suicide. I have to kill myself because I don't have any money. I don't have anything. I'm in deep. This is all bad. And Luis says, put your head on straight, son. You don't have to commit suicide. And they end up getting in a tussle, and they end up getting in a fight over the money, and they end up getting a tussle. And the guy grabs a knife and goes to stab Luis, but I think he accidentally stabs himself while he's trying to stab Luis. Now Luis gets away, but apparently there was no suicide note, and this guy told his wife Sabella that he was going to be with Luis, and I think Luis told Sabella also. So people knew that Luis was there at this time the guy was killed. So not even a day or so after Luis is Duke, he's arrested for suspected murder.
Which of them could it be? Young Escoin? Henry? Ethelred? The parson? The general? Lady Agatha? Or could it be all of them?
Because he was the last one seen with this guy who was killed. Now Sabella gets on the witness stand and she could save him, but she doesn't. She says, "Oh, like I know he killed my husband. I know they were having a fight. I know it was about money. Like he's guilty of murder, and you should throw the book at him." So they end up convicting him. They sentence him to death. But then she visits him afterwards in like a a situation where you can talk behind a glass or whatever to the inmate, and she says, "Hey, look, they could possibly find a suicide note. You never know. And if someone named Luis would agree to marry me now that my husband's dead, they would have a much easier time at finding this suicide note." So he gets what's going on, like she's blackmailing him. So he agrees. He said, "Okay, fine, I'll marry you if you find a suicide note, whatever. It's probably not going to happen. I don't think you're actually going to do it, but sure, I'll agree to that." So at the end of the movie, they're getting ready to take him off to be executed, and at the last minute, a suicide note was found. So thank God the suicide note was found, and now he is no longer convicted of murder. So when he gets outside, outside of prison, there's a lot of people that are angry because they wanted to see an execution. And then you have Edith on one side and Sabella on the other side, and they're both inviting him into their carriage. So now he has to make a decision. But he remembers that he was writing down his memoirs while he was in jail. It's basically while he was in prison waiting to be executed, he was writing down his memoirs, which essentially was admitting to everything that he did. He admitted to killing everyone. He told the story of his whole life. And this movie is him narrating everything that happened. So everything that we hear in the movie is what he wrote down on his memoirs, and he left it in his room. So when they go, so he pretty much got away with murder. He got away with murdering all these people, and he was going to now claim his right as Duke. And he outsmarted everyone until the end of the movie when he forgot that he left his memoirs in there, and now he's most certainly going to be arrested again. Unless, I don't know how that works. I don't think Double Jeopardy existed back then, and probably not in Europe, but he's likely going to be tried again and probably sentenced to death again, because he admitted to not only killing one person but to killing 8 people. And that's basically the entire movie of Kind Hearts and Coronets. So what do I think of this movie? I really, really love this movie a lot. This movie is hilarious, and it's not the kind of comedy that you are normally used to. This is dark comedy where he tells jokes that are very straight-faced. He kind of hides jokes here and there. You really have to be paying attention to what he's saying and what he's doing. But what he's saying and what he's doing as far as Dennis Price goes is absolutely hilarious. I know that Alec Guinness plays 8 roles in this movie, and he does a really good job. Every role he plays is unique and different. He gives his own, they have their own personality, they have their own demeanor, they have their own way at which they carry each other. So as far as playing 8 different characters in the movie, he does absolutely a phenomenal job. But Dennis Price, I think, is this movie for me. He's so good. He's such a good actor. He's so funny. He delivers lines perfectly, and they just gave him a really good script here to work with, and he just absolutely ran away with it. Valerie Hobson as Edith and Joan Greenwood as Sabella are also fantastic. They're more side characters, but they do a really great job. I especially loved Edith's character, Valerie Hobson, and I also believe she was in Great Expectations as well, which she did a really good job with that movie. But this movie is just really, really funny. The fact that these people who are in the office of Duke, that they are just, I mean, a lot of them are bumbly, a lot of them don't understand like the outside world and don't understand how things work, which is perfect. It's hilarious. The photographer, he's just like so easy to befriend, and when he actually finds someone who knows what he's doing, finds someone who shares the same interests as him, it's like he flocks to them. Like he doesn't have a lot of people in his life who share the same interests as him, and they're just, a lot of them are so easy to befriend and so easy to kind of string along, It's absolutely hilarious. And the fact that Dennis Price is just doing this, he has no remorse. He's doing this for revenge, and he's actually having fun with it. Especially, I think when he shoots the arrow of the balloon, like he's actually having fun with these murders. It's not only like it's like a game to him, but it's also like his passion. It's like what he's decided he's going to set his mind on, and he's doing it, and he does it absolutely perfectly. And the fact that he can come up with these different ways to kill 8 people without leaving any shred of evidence, without leaving, anything behind. I mean, there's no DNA back then, obviously, but without leaving any evidence behind that can lead to his capture. And then at the end of the movie, he's captured for a murder that he didn't even do is great. It's fantastic. So even when he's in the police carriage, he's asking himself, like, I wonder which murder they found out was me. And then when he realizes who it was, he realizes I didn't kill that guy. They got me for the wrong one. And then he even gets away with that. He gets away from that by, I don't know if he was conning Sabella. I don't think he was really going to marry Sabella at the end. He was just trying to get out of jail. I really believe he was going to end up with Edith at the end because, like, that's the kind of person that he felt was his person. I felt like Sabella kind of strung him along too much and treated him poorly, and he wasn't going to end up with her at the end. But the way he cons Sabella at the end to get him out of jail, and then he's finally he's free. He got away with it. He really showed everyone. He avenged his mom. He he really stuck it to the Dukes, and then he just like screws himself. He went to all that trouble to perfectly plan all those murders, and then at the end of the movie, when he's I think it's because maybe his ego is a little bit high because he was able to murder these people. He was able to get away with it, and now he's writing his memoirs so that everyone can know like how great he was. And after he's executed, they'll find out he did all these murders and had no idea, and they weren't able to catch him. And he's like so like full of himself, and he's so full of the fact that he did this that at the end of the movie he just completely forgets that he did it. And it's great. It's hilarious. I'm not usually a huge fan of British comedy. This is older British comedy. Obviously, it's 1949. But every joke here, every gag, everything they do, this dark comedy that they're doing is delivered perfectly. The writing is perfect. The way they set up these comedic moments are perfect. Everything is just so good in this movie. I don't know if I have any real complaints. There are, I kind of went through the murders quite quickly. Honestly, there are a lot of characters that he murders that you don't really know who they are, but maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe you're supposed to, they want no emotional attachment to really any of the character he murders because they want you to just, like they're treated like they're nothing, like he was treated like he was nothing. I don't know. Honestly, I would have liked some more backstory for some of these characters because I think Alec Guinness could have really ran away with every character that he was, like especially the ship captain. I would have loved some more backstory about that guy. I would have loved some more backstory about maybe the photographer, although you get a lot about him, but more backstory about the guy who's at the restaurant. A couple of the characters, I think just for time purposes, they just kind of kill off quickly. They don't really give you a lot of explanation of who they are, but I would have loved to see how Alec Guinness could have just taken these characters and ran away with them even more. But besides that, I thought this movie was really, really quite good, and I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. Thank you. I hope you join me for my next review when I do Late Spring. Have a good day.